Yesterday, we broke records for the best team of all time in our College Football 26 scoreboard. And today, I want to do it again, but this time for the most impressive team. So today, the conferences are the perfect Power 2. Ah, man, I really wanted to wear that hat, but it was just not working with my green screen. But you're just going to get a see-through Nike and Oregon symbol on this sweatshirt here. You can get this at Dick's at my affiliate link below. But we did make some changes to the conferences here. I said that they were perfect, but they're by no means actually perfect. They just work specifically for what we want to do with this particular video. So what I did was I took all of our teams that are not eligible for the most impressive race, as well as the two teams that have performed the best in the most impressive race so far, and split them amongst the Big Ten and the SEC loosely by geography, north and south. So SMU, Texas Tech, and Notre Dame and Oklahoma got added to the Big Ten, along with the other teams that they already had that can't be in the most impressive race, as well as Nebraska, who has had some pretty good runs. They won it 2 videos ago, and they were pretty close to winning it this last time, and they are like right on the edge of being in it. They're 3.5 stars and 86 overall. You need to be 4 stars or 87 overall to not be in it. So they get moved into the Big Ten there, and then the SEC, we moved all the teams over from the ACC, so like Florida State, Miami, Clemson, that would not be a part of it generally. And then we also moved Duke in here, who has been dominating in these categories, even though they're not right on the edge like Nebraska is. They're 2.5 stars and 80 overall, but still we went ahead and threw them in there as well. And then we just kind of separated the rest of the teams throughout like the Big 12. We put like a lot of the 3-star teams in here. We kind of did it like West and East between the Big 12 and the ACC for the rest of the Power 4 teams. So we'll see if some of these teams will come out of the most impressive or what exactly will happen. But the idea here is that we get a different most impressive team that's not Duke or Nebraska, and ideally break the record that Duke has of 87 points, which would be a really hard bar for someone to reach, but we'll see if that can happen. We're rolling with South Alabama because I don't think that we have used them in a video yet. We're going to do 4 years, best team, most impressive, all the things we usually do. Make sure that you like and subscribe. I'm really trying to get this thing figured out here with thumbnails and titles, so let me know what you think about today's thumbnail. And what you think of all the thumbnails that I've done. What are your favorite ones? And make sure that you like and subscribe so we can keep making these videos for you. But we're going to sim to the first CFP poll. 4-4 start, not terrible for South Alabama. Now, if you didn't watch our last video, make sure that you do check it out because we had 2 records in that video. One of them was Clemson, who absolutely blew Duke's record out of the water. The other one was USC, who's not in our top 10 here, but make sure that you check that video out to see which one was better because they both beat Duke's record. Who was the better of the two? Don't spoil it in the comments if you've already seen that video. But we do have a couple teams that are outside of our top 2 conferences in the top 10. Illinois, number 3, that's a team that has not really made that much of an impact in the most impressive race. I think they've been in one of our top 5 since we started doing that, but not really making that big of an impact. We also got Georgia Tech, who has been up there a little bit, but still not winning it yet. Vanderbilt's up there, Louisville, Arizona State. Remember, there was a time when Louisville and Arizona State actually created this whole thing with the most impressive because they were making big runs. They haven't really done that so far in our newer videos, but they are up in the top 12 this time. Oregon's 4-3. And number 13 in the country. Who are their losses to? 4-point loss at home against Oklahoma to open up the season. 8-point loss on the road against SMU. And then they lost by 5 against Indiana there. And they still got a couple tough games left. So be interesting to see how that all turns out. If they can weather the storm and with 3 losses in their first 6 games and still get through. Pitt is a team that had been doing really well in the later on seasons. But they haven't been doing that quite so much lately. Nebraska is up in the top 20, even though they're in the tougher conference. Duke is in the top 25 as well. UNLV, who had been dominating for a while at the G5, maybe not so much now. And then we've got also USF from the G5 up there as well. So pretty interesting start to our records here. We do have a lot of our more powerful teams up in the top 10, but we do also have quite a few most impressive teams. So let's see what the conference championships end up looking like. 5-7, so not terrible for USA to start. We'll see if we can get it going later on. Now, Georgia Tech is in this ACC championship game. We just happen to see that they lost against Georgia, which knocked them down to number 12. So this becomes a win and in, lose and out game for Georgia Tech and probably for Pittsburgh as well. We'll see how that ends up turning out. 7-11, Iowa State and Kansas State. Kansas State is new. We've seen them make a couple playoffs, but we'll see in the first year if they can make something happen out of that. That's not what we want to see. Duke at number 5, even though we put them through the SEC gauntlet, they still look like they're going to get into the playoff in the first season. We've also got Vandy in the Pac-12. So I think what I did was I split the Big 12 and the ACC kind of evenly with the leftover teams, and then I put the worst teams, the teams that I thought would be, if they were just based on what they've done in our videos, they would get kicked out of those conferences. I put those in the Pac-12, and Vandy has rallied that into a top 10 finish. So they're going to get in. UNLV is most likely going to get in, assuming they both win there. 3, 4, 5 probably. So this is not even for an automatic qualifier. It's really just for a top 12 spot. So win and in, lose and out for sure there. We're not going to get G5. Well, we're going to get UNLV, but we're not going to get USF or Tulane, and we're not going to get JMU, even though they had top 20 finishes in those conferences. So let's see what ends up happening, but I'm not happy about Duke being in the top 5. A throwback, Byron Brown gets the Heisman in the first season, almost 4,000 yards passing, 43 touchdowns for the USF quarterback. What does our bracket look like here? Vanderbilt lost. So that opens it up. So USF does end up getting in, just by virtue of being number 12, because that's not an automatic qualifier. Vanderbilt also gets in, even though they lost in their conference championship game. They were number 8, I think, so they lost, dropped down. They still made it in. That is also because Pitt beat Georgia Tech. So we get a lot of most impressive teams in this. Everybody in the first round. Everybody that's playing in the first round. So this is the perfect playoff in the first season for this video. If the idea is to get more most impressive teams and to separate them from the best teams, this is exactly what you get. 1 through 4 are only in the race for best team. 5 through 12 are all teams that can compete for most impressive. Even Duke is still, even though we put them in that other conference, they're still competing for most impressive. I still have not made the decision to kick them out of that race because even though they won, they didn't have like a runaway win in the last time. So we're still going to keep them in there, even though I do not understand why Duke is so good in Dynasty. So Iowa State will face off against the Heisman Trophy winner USF. That could be big. A Heisman getting in the first season and having a conference championship. I mean, they're already like 10 points before they even play their first game. The winner will take on Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Duke and Louisville in the 8-9. Winner will take on number 1 Miami in the Cotton Bowl. All ACC teams in real life there. UNLV will host Vanderbilt in the first round there. The winner will take on Georgia. Those are essentially our 2 G5 teams. Well, you have 3 G5 teams and like 6 or 7 different conferences represented here in the first round. So that's pretty good. UNLV will host Vanderbilt. Winner takes on Georgia. And then Pitt hosting Kansas State with the winner taking on Penn State in the second round. And we almost get all road teams with the win in the first round as well. USF puts up 63 points on Iowa State. Look out for USF now. They were 17, I think, in the conference championships. Shoot up to 12. They get a Heisman. They get a first-round victory. They have a conference championship. They've got quite a few points already, especially when we're talking most impressive race. Louisville gets the win over Duke, so they're not going to start off at the top of the most impressive race. Probably not even in the top 5 because they didn't get a conference championship and they didn't get a win. So they really only score 5 points in this first round. And we've got quite a few teams that have done more than that, including all the winners and UNLV and Iowa State. So Duke is starting outside of the top 5 with the way it turns out there. We got an SEC matchup with Georgia and Vanderbilt, an ACC matchup with Miami and Louisville, and a all Pennsylvania matchup with Penn State and Pitt in the Orange Bowl. So there's matchups all around, and Indiana and USF just happen to be there as well. And only one of our first round teams actually makes it through to the semifinal. Although we did have a valiant effort from Vanderbilt there, they end up falling short by 5 to Georgia. They just kind of didn't, they got down 14-3 and couldn't get it back in the second half. So it's 2-3 in the bottom there, Penn State and Georgia in the Peach Bowl. And then it's Indiana-Louisville. Louisville gets past Miami by 3 in the 1-9 matchup. They'll be in the Fiesta Bowl. We're going to say that's a last-second field goal. They go into the fourth quarter and they kick a last-second field goal to win it over the 1 seed. So it's Indiana and Louisville in the Fiesta Bowl, that's kind of a down-the-road match. We're not exactly sure, but I know that Louisville's close to Indiana, so interesting matchup there. We got one team that's in the most impressive race that could be in the national championship. They end up getting stopped short. Indiana gets the win 42-34 in overtime. In the second overtime, they score, get the 2-point conversion. Louisville couldn't match it. Indiana moves on to the national championship in double overtime against Louisville. Georgia gets a big win over Penn State. So it is Big Ten SEC in the first national championship, Georgia versus Indiana. Let's look at the top fives in both races before we see that game. All right, here are the top fives for both races going into our first national championship game, starting with the most impressive race. We have a tie for fifth in the most impressive race with UNLV and Iowa State both making the playoffs and winning a conference championship but not getting a win. Vandy didn't get their conference championship, but they did get a win in the playoff. They have 10 points. They are in fourth. Pitt has 12 points. They're in third. USF with 15 points and Louisville with 15 points are tied for first, with USF getting that Heisman and the conference championship gets them their additional 5 points that Louisville got through the win in the playoff. Now, for our top five for the best teams, we've got Georgia and Indiana both tied at 22. There's 20 points on the line in the national championship. The runner-up will get 5, so they will stay 1 and 2 based on the national championship results. Penn State, our other semifinal team, is at 19 points. And then we have Louisville and USF both tied at the top of the most impressive race and tied for fifth, or I guess fourth, in our best team race. But it's Indiana who fulfills the prophecy and wins the 2025 national championship by 21 points. Really just took it to Georgia throughout the entire game. They were just the better team there. They get the win by 3 touchdowns. Not by 3 touchdowns. They win the game by 11 points, so a touchdown and a field goal plus a 2-point conversion. They get the first national championship. They'll take over first place, scoring 42 points in the first year. But let's go to year 2. We went 5-7 last year. This year we're going 3-5 and signing 1-star prospects. So we'll see if we make it through the 4 years at South Alabama. But oh boy, here's Duke, 10-0 at the top. They're playing in the SEC, folks. They are playing against the best teams of the South. They're beating Florida. They're beating Clemson, who just dominated our last video. They just beat Alabama. They beat Georgia, Ole Miss. They got Louisville, who made it to the semifinal last year. LSU, who is a solid team, I guess. Duke is number 1 in the country, and they're probably going to go in as the number 1 overall seed. We've also got Pitt at 10-0. They're not playing in the SEC, but they have the same record. Their Oregon's getting up there. We have all new top 12 this year. Duke and Pitt made it in last year. Oregon, South Carolina, Missouri, Ohio State, Auburn, Alabama, Boston College, North Texas, and Oklahoma all didn't. But Georgia, the only 3 in the top 12 are Georgia, Pitt, and Duke. Those are the only ones that made the playoff last season. And Georgia has 3 losses. Miami's right on the outside looking in right now. UTSA is making their way up there. I mean, we have a lot of things going on here. This most impressive race is going to be very fun. And it might even be a really good best team race because Indiana, our team that won last year, 42 points, is not even in the top 25. So they're probably not going to score any more points this year. And if Georgia doesn't make the playoff either, then we're going to have a wide open best team race along with our most impressive race. So let's see what the conference championships look like. All right, folks. The first thing I want you to pay attention to is North Texas and UTSA are both going to make the playoff out of the American this year, regardless of who wins here. The winner is most likely going to get a first round bye as well. That is going to go a long way in this most impressive race. But Duke might also be in line for a first-round bye. They did go 12-0, but they got jumped by Oregon just because Oregon has a more difficult schedule at the end of the season. Pitt also might get a first-round bye. Both of those teams won out from the 10-0 spot that they were at when we checked in on them. But Auburn is also in this race. USC is now creeping up into this best team race. We've got UCLA and Illinois. One of those teams, at least one of those teams, is going to make our 12-team field. So there's a bunch of teams that are involved here. Let's look at this top 25. Did Miami or Georgia find their way in? No. Miami might. There is USC is lurking there. Illinois is lurking there. But Miami most likely will be in. But Georgia did not make it in. Miami only scored 12 points last year because they got a first-round bye and won their conference championship. Actually, I think they scored like 15 points. But still, they are not in the same top of the class like Georgia and Indiana were. So there's still a wide open race all around. Tulane's also going to make it in. We're going to get 3 American teams in the second year here. Colorado's made it in as well. How do we miss them? Oh my God, this is a wide open race here going into the second. Let's look what the bracket looks like. 2 most impressive teams get the Heismans in the first 2 years. It was Byron Brown in the first year. Nico gets it in the second year here, over 3,800 yards passing, 36 touchdowns, and UCLA very well could have made the playoffs. Let's see what this bracket looks like. I double-checked. Miami had 14 points. They were just outside of the top 5. So North Texas does get a first-round bye. Tulane and UTSA will face off in the first round. Pitt got a first-round bye as well. Auburn got a first-round bye. Duke ended up losing in the conference championship game to Ole Miss, who then jumped up and took the 12 seed, which probably would have gone to USC Illinois, who UCLA beat. UCLA gets in, Colorado gets in, so we have 1, 2, last year we had 8 most impressive teams in. This year we have North Texas, Auburn, Pitt, UCLA, Colorado, Tulane, UTSA, and Duke. Another 8 teams in this year from the most impressive team race. Only Oregon, Miami, Texas Tech, and Ole Miss are not involved in that race. And we're going to get a couple of these most impressive teams most likely facing off. Well, there is a world in which it's no most impressive versus most impressive in the second round, but there is a likelihood that we'll see that at least one of those matchups in the second round. We also have one undefeated team going into the playoff. That's North Texas. Both of our other 2 undefeated teams, Pitt and Duke, lost in their conference championship game, so they won't be able to be eligible for that 5-point bonus, but North Texas could make a run here. They're number 2 in the country. They're undefeated so far. They could make a run here and have one of the best seasons that you could possibly have, which would really put them ahead, not just in the most impressive, but the best team race. You can put the teams however you want them, but you still need upsets in the playoff, and we got a couple of them. UCLA gets the upset over Texas Tech, 24-12. That game was in Lubbock, so we get a most impressive on most impressive game, UCLA and North Texas. Colorado couldn't quite hold off Miami, so it's Auburn versus Miami in the 3 versus 11. Tulane puts a big smackdown on UTSA, 45-13. So it's Oregon versus Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. And Pitt gets Ole Miss, who gets a second straight upset over Duke. They got him in the SEC championship game, and then they get him again in the first round of the playoff, 42-35. Ole Miss gets the upset there. They will take on Pitt in the Orange Bowl in the second round. So we only get one most impressive on most impressive, but we will at least have one most impressive team in the semifinal for the second straight season. That's why we put these 2 conferences together. You can put them however you want them, but you're going to get some of these good teams in. You're going to get some of the top teams in. You need to hope for upsets in the playoff, and we're getting a few of them this run. Not 1, but 3 most impressive teams make it through to the semifinal. Pittsburgh and Auburn took care of business in their games, being the higher seed. Pitt wins 46-28. Auburn gets past Miami. North Texas, the undefeated team, couldn't quite get past UCLA, but UCLA's got something going on here too. They have a conference championship. They have a Heisman Trophy. They might be in the lead for most impressive now. I think Pitt probably still is because they had a win last year as well, and they got a bye, and they got a win. But UCLA, we're going to get a most impressive team in the national championship, at least one, depending on what happens between Pitt and Oregon at the top of the bracket in the Rose Bowl. And what we get is an old school Pac-10. We can even go Pac-8 matchup so far back, Oregon and UCLA. I think even PCC matchup. We could go way back to the Pacific Coast Conference for Oregon and UCLA in the 1 versus 10 here. Both of them really took care of business. 49-28 for Oregon, 42-14 for UCLA. They'll face off in Vegas, so we get an all West Coast championship here at Allegiant Stadium. Let me get things all lined up here, because I think that one of these teams is going to take the lead in the overall race and in the most impressive race. But let's see what it looks like. 2 top 5s for you going into the second national championship, starting with the most impressive race. We've got Louisville and USF tied for 4th with 15 points apiece. We've got Auburn in 3rd place with 19 points. UCLA, who's in the national championship, with 25 points. And Pitt, who made it to the semifinal and made it last year, got a win in both of those years, is at 29 points. UCLA has at least 5 points that they'll score for being in the national championship, so they will take the lead in the most impressive race, but they could get up to 20, so they could get a lot more than just the lead in the most impressive race. I also want to mention just outside the top 5 is North Texas with 14 points. Had to mention somebody from the American this year because they got 3 teams in, although North Texas was not able to get the win in our best team race going into this national championship. Last year's national champion, Indiana, has 42 points going into this. So they have a big lead right now, but of course there's going to be more points scored here in this national championship. Pitt at 29 points is in second place. Georgia, last year's runner-up at 27 points, is in third place. UCLA is in fourth place with 25 points. They got the Heisman this year, which really helped them, even though they did not get the bye in the first round that Oregon got. So Oregon and Miami are then tied in fifth place with 24 points. Again, 20 points on the line for the national champion, 5 points for the runner-up. So at the very least, Oregon will end up tied for third. At the very least, UCLA will have its share of third. Either way, the winner will be in first place going into the third season. And it's Oregon that gets the win in the national championship by 7 over UCLA. Dun, 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 dun. Close game throughout, but looks like maybe a touchdown right before halftime was the difference for Oregon there. That's 2 straight for the Big Ten in this conference, or in this run here in the first 2 years. That is 2 teams that are not a part of the best or most impressive team race that have gotten the win. UCLA almost took a massive lead in the most impressive race. Either way, they still take a slight lead going into the third season, and Oregon is the first place in the best team race going into the third season. Duke, in many ways, the point of this video has been one of the best regular season teams, and they're at it again. 9-0, number 1 in the country going into the first CFP poll, and what do they have left? They have a couple tough games, LSU and on the road against Miami to close out their season there, as well as the game against Georgia Tech, who was pretty good in the first season, but they should be in the playoff barring a massive collapse. We've also got a massive matchup between Pitt, who is currently second place in the most impressive race, and Boston College, who we haven't seen bubble this far up yet. It's at Boston College, 3 versus 7, so that is a big matchup. And us at South Alabama are 3-5. But we have an enormous game coming to town. Louisiana, who's currently 8-0, is coming to town. We'll see if we can pull off the upset there, or if Louisiana can keep their undefeated streak alive and potentially find themselves in the playoff. Kind of a tough end with Southern Miss and Texas State both on their schedule, but we'll see if Louisiana can make it into the playoff. Oregon is our defending national champion, number 1 in the poll currently, or in our race currently, I should say. Miami is also up in should be around the top 5 still. Auburn, Pitt, Duke, all are in their races as well. We don't see Indiana in the top 25 for the second straight season. We don't see Georgia. UCLA, who is currently in third, is in the number 23 spot. We'll see if they can make their way back up, but it is one of those videos where we have new teams each and every season. I mean, South Carolina, Boston College, TCU, Louisiana, USC is up there for this time, Clemson, Nebraska. We got a bunch of new teams up around the college football playoff going into this first poll. Let's see what the conference championship looks like, though. I did get fired, so we'll see where I go for the final season of the video, but we've got some interesting things going on at the top here. Duke is back in the top 5 yet again. Again, the reason for this video, they are back in the top 5. They have a big matchup against Miami in the SEC championship game, but they'll both be in. UTSA is most likely in the playoffs yet again. Win, lose, or draw with us in this game against Tulane. They lost to Tulane in the playoff last year, so we'll see if they can avenge that loss. Pitt and Boston College will both be in. Pitt will be in for their 3rd straight season, just like Duke. UCLA is looking to get back in. They'll be in. Win, lose, or draw here. TCU probably needs to win to stay in. The Big Ten championship game is weak. Michigan and Oklahoma. There's a chance that the Big Ten misses out, at least with their automatic qualifier, if Oklahoma gets the win there. Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're not going to get the automatic qualifier anyway. Unless they get some help from above them, they're probably not going to get the automatic qualifier anyway. So if Oklahoma gets the win there, will the Big Ten miss out? Let's see what the top 25 tells us. Missouri is going to be in for the first time, and Oregon's probably going to be in. So the Big Ten won't miss out, and Oregon's going to make it back in. They, along with, I guess, Miami, Duke, UCLA, Pitt, are kind of the teams that are really battling for best team right now, with Oregon making it in. Georgia's not going to make it in. Indiana's not going to make it in. So that's kind of the top of the race there. Let's see what the bracket actually looks like. Get kind of a better idea of what we got in this third playoff. For the third straight season, a team in our most impressive team race gets the Heisman. It's Pitt this time, almost 3,900 yards and 40 touchdowns for Eli Holstein. That is big because Pitt is very much in the race, not for just most impressive team, but for best team in the video. So Pitt getting a good start there, and they are the number 1 seed in the playoffs. So, wow, this is a great lineup here. Michigan did end up making it in with their win. UTSA did get a top 5 seed. They'll face off against South Carolina in the first round. I think it's basically chalk here. Maybe there were some things moved around, but the top 12 that we saw is the top 12 that got in. Michigan's hosting Louisiana in that first round. It was a big Big Ten championship game victory. Maybe they would have made it in either way, but hosting Louisiana as opposed to having to go on the road somewhere is helpful. The winner of that game plays Pitt. The winner of UTSA South Carolina will play Duke. Boston College is hosting Oregon, our defending national champion. The winner of that plays UCLA. Could get a rematch of last year's national championship game between UCLA and Oregon. Missouri and TCU, 2 new teams, will face off against one of our other teams that's been in 3 straight seasons, Miami. We have 3 teams that are in the top 4 that have been in 3 straight seasons. Pitt, Duke, and Miami all have been in for 3 straight seasons. Oregon, UTSA, and Michigan, or UTSA and UCLA are the only other teams that have been in more than once. They've been in 2 straight seasons. Our 2 G5 teams end up coming up short in the first round. Michigan gets a smack done on Louisiana. I mean, Louisiana had to play in the Big House, so that's a tough game. They'll move on to play Pitt. UTSA loses for their 2nd straight season in the first round. This year they hosted it in the Alamo Dome and they couldn't get the win. South Carolina moves on to play Duke in an all-Carolina matchup. Oregon squeaks past Boston College. That's a big win there because they were on the road at Boston College across the country. They needed to get that win. They're currently in the lead, but just slightly ahead of Indiana. But UCLA and Pitt are right on their heels. If they weren't able to get the win there, they probably would be a big gap because UCLA and Pitt both got first round buys, which are, of course, more points than getting a win in the first round anyway. They also got conference championship this year. Then TCU gets a win over Missouri. They'll take on Miami. So we really have kind of our top 5. I mean, what was our top 5 going into this last season? It was Oregon, Indiana, UCLA, Pitt, Georgia. But Miami was right on the outside there. I guess Duke is the one that's kind of really needs to get some work going here. Really, we're only missing Indiana and Georgia, who haven't been in since the first season. Got a lot of teams in that top 5 that are here in the quarterfinal in this 3rd season. We could go out to Tulane. I think that's actually where we're going to go. We're going to go over to Tulane after getting fired here. We're going to take over Tulane, see if we can get them back into that most impressive race. It's really starting to shake out now. Oregon gets the double victory. They won last year against UCLA in the national championship. They win again this year in the Peach Bowl. They move on. They're far and away the number 1 team right now. But Duke and Pitt are also having really good runs. Pitt, especially, if they can get a national championship here, would be a massive, massive run for them in both races. TCU is sneaking up. This is the first time we've seen them in the playoff, but they're all the way up in the semifinal. They get the win over Miami, which is a crushing loss for Miami there. Let's see how this all shakes out. We're either getting Duke or Pitt in the national championship game, and potentially Oregon with a back-to-back national championship. And Oregon's going to have a chance to do it. And the thorn in our side in this video has been Duke. We've been trying to get them out of the most impressive race, but they will not stop. Even with Pitt having one of the best seasons of the most impressive race so far, they get stopped 36-30. Duke will take on Oregon in New Orleans for the national championship game. We're going to sim this, then we'll go through the 2 top 5s going into the final season. The Ducks go back-to-back. They just sneak in this year, getting the 11th seed. They win all the way through, crush Duke in the national championship, 40-14. So not only is Oregon now looking at probably running away with the best team in this video, but the top 3 starts at 87 by Duke in that VCS appearances conference alignment video. Oregon might be sneaking up on that after getting 2 straight national championships. 2 national championships, you're talking about at least 80 points in that. So we'll see what that all looks like and get the 2 top 5s for you. We've actually only got 1 top 5 for you because it gives you all the information that you need right there. So here is that top 5. So our 5th place team is Duke right now. They have 37 points. They're not really in striking distance to catch Oregon. They technically are, but more so they're very much in the race for the most impressive team after their runner-up and their 3 straight appearances so far. Indiana, who won the first year and has not scored any points since then, is in 4th place with 42 points. UCLA has 44 points. They won a couple conference championships. They got a couple byes, and they have a Heisman Trophy. So that's why they're doing a little bit better than Duke, even though they have missed out on one of the playoffs that Duke has made. They're at 44 points. Pitt, who's in the lead for our most impressive, is at 48 points. Oregon is currently at 84 points. 87 points is the bottom of the top three. That's where Duke currently sits with their BCS run. So that is definitely in jeopardy if Oregon, all they have to do is, the least they have to do is get a Heisman. They can tie it up. If they get to the playoffs, they beat it by at least 2 points. And then, of course, anything above that, they are within striking distance of Clemson at 116. 52 points is the most points you can score in a season. So they could get as high as 136, but just a national championship should probably have them jump over Clemson if they do win it in the third season. We'll see if that actually happens. Very unlikely they win 3 straight. But Pitt also is within striking distance. Pitt, UCLA, Indiana, Duke, they're all within striking distance. Miami is our 6th team. They're at 31 points. Even if they score 52 points, they would end up at 83. So they are not going to be within striking distance of Oregon. That's why we don't have to put any more stuff on the screen besides this top 5. Pitt, UCLA, and Duke are all within striking distance, technically, of Duke's most impressive season, which is still that 87 that is number 3 in the best team race. So we'll see if any of these teams can break any records or if it just ends up kind of pretty similar to what we have set up going into this final season. All right, we might be teetering on a not very explosive exit to this video here, but we do have Pitt in the top 10. Oregon's number 13. UCLA is number 6 here. They could make their 3rd straight playoff. We also got Auburn, who could make some noise in the most impressive race, I guess. They have 19 points currently, so they could get a really big end to their run here. Georgia also was a runner-up at the beginnings, but they're not going to catch Oregon, so it doesn't really matter for the overall video. And like I said, Miami has to have a perfect season, so they're already out of it because they're not going to get a perfect season. But UTSA could technically make their 3rd straight playoff, which would be a very interesting outcome. Duke is not going to make the playoff this year. They already got 4 losses, so they're not going to make it back in. Indiana, okay, so this is the game. Indiana at Oregon. The winner is alive, the loser's out. And these are really 2 of the teams that could end up winning this. Oregon probably doesn't have to do much to end up winning it. Somebody else really has to do something, and Indiana is one of those teams that can. So the winner of that game has a chance to stay alive. The other one is out. So let's just sim 1 week and see what happens. And it's the Ducks who get the victory. They're 7-2 now. 3 more games left on the season. Can they make it back into the playoff? They're currently number 10 in the country. This is a tough game at Michigan. They got home game against Ohio State, home game against Oklahoma, who haven't really been that great so far, but at Michigan is a big game there. They've already lost to USC and SMU earlier on in the season. They had a close game against Baylor as well in just their 3rd game. So, and a close game against Oregon State. So we'll see if they can end this up with 3 more wins. They should be back in the playoff, and that would break the record, or at least get them into the top 3, and be 2 straight videos in which someone has broken Duke's original records they set in the first video. All right, so kind of interesting here. We got TCU, who made a run to the semifinal last year. They're going to make it back in. UCLA should most likely make it back in, win, lose, or draw as well here in this final season. Auburn will be back in. NC State's going to be in for the first time. Notre Dame and USC will both be in for the first time. Notre Dame's our number 1 team in the country. Georgia will be back in for the first time since the first season. LSU will be in. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Minnesota is probably 5 in the automatic qualifiers, unless they lose to Mississippi State. Then you could see Ball State in the playoff at the end. Minnesota or Ball State is an interesting team to get in. But importantly, did Oregon get into the top 12? Did they find a way to stay alive? They did. They ended up losing one of the games, but they're top 10. They won't be jumped over because at the very most, so they lost the Michigan game, but they found a way to survive in the top 10. At the very most, it would be Ball State jumping up 1 time, but Oregon and Iowa are probably both safe. It's really up to just Minnesota if they're going to end up losing. They lost their last game of the regular season again in the battle for Paul Bunyan's axe, right? At Wisconsin. So they could close it out with a win to get into the playoff or not, but we'll see. But Oregon does get in, so they will be in the top 3. We're going to do a whole Hall of Fame video next week. I think I'm going to do a short and a full-on video for the Hall of Fame induction for those 3 teams. Now that we got 3 full teams, we're going to do a full podium for the raising the banners. But let's go see what the bracket looks like. We do get 4 straight Heismans from most impressive teams. The final one is Kamario Taylor. Almost 4,200 yards passing and 35 touchdowns. I think we also got 4 straight quarterbacks. So probably the most realistic one we've got because we're not getting some Georgia wide receiver. We also got the Chuck Bednarik Award at Tulane in our first season. Let's go. Didn't make it back to the playoff. Didn't make it to the conference championship game, but our linebackers were fucking killing. We got 3 linebacker awards. Dick Buckus Award 2, the Bronco Nagurski Award, Chuck Bednarik, and we get into the first responder bowl. This is our first bowl game that we've been in this whole time, so it helps to take over one of the best G5 teams that you can take over. What does the bracket look like? Okay, so Oregon gets in at the 11 seed. They won from the 11 seed last year, so we'll see if they can make that happen again. Minnesota ended up losing that final game, or they just got jumped by Ball State. But either way, Ball State ends up getting in the final season. That is a very, very cool thing that happened. So UTSA got in 2 years in a row. We got Tulane in. We got North Texas in. We got Ball State in. I think UNLV was in the first year. We got Louisiana in as well. Iowa, NC State. So this was a very successful conference realignment, especially because the Ducks are going to get one of the best all-time seasons, potentially the best all-time season if they can make the run to the national championship here. So Ball State and USC, winner will take on Notre Dame. USC just beat Notre Dame for the Big Ten championship. That game will happen in the Rose Bowl depending on who wins. UCLA is back in for the 3rd straight season. They'll take on South Carolina, who's been in, I think they were in last year as well, so 2 straight seasons for them. And the winner will take on TCU, who's been in for 2 straight seasons. Oregon and Georgia in the Dan Lanning Bowl. We know what Oregon's doing. Georgia was in the first season and got the runner-up. LSU's in for the first time. And then NC State and Iowa in for the first time. Winner will take on Auburn, who is in for their second time and does have a chance to make some noise in the most impressive race if they can make a run here starting in the Orange Bowl. And the Ducks keep the run alive. They get the win in the first round over Georgia on the road in Athens. 7-point win. They will now take on LSU, essentially another road game because they're going to the Sugar Bowl. We get a rematch of Notre Dame and USC. Of course, USC gets the win at home over Ball State. So that is a Rose Bowl matchup between Notre Dame and USC. UCLA, who had a real chance at winning our most impressive team in the video, still might have done that. I think that actually it was more interesting, than I set it up because, I think that UCLA is going to get most impressive team in the video. We weren't really accounting for TCU being the number 1 team in the country, so maybe they'll make a run. Didn't count up what they're at, but they were not anywhere near the top 5, so we'll see. But UCLA, with just making the playoff and Pitt not making it, UCLA took the lead in the most impressive race. Duke did not make the playoff as well. So TCU and Auburn both have a chance to make some noise in that race. Maybe even South Carolina, but to a much lesser extent. Iowa got the win in the 2 new guys Bowl at the bottom there over NC State on the road. Thank you to ServPro and all the sponsors. We appreciate you having us. We are the winners of the First Responder Bowl. Don't you forget it. That will go down in history. Let's see what the bracket looks like, though. Tulane gets a win. We get our 1 season at Tulane. Okay, we got it. Let's get through this. There's more important things to talk about. Thank you, ServPro. Oregon gets another win, so they move on to the semifinal with TCU losing. I think that wraps it up for UCLA. I don't know how much of a run. Auburn is at 19 points going in. Well, no, Auburn could still win. Auburn was at 19 points going in. UCLA is at 49 with the just making it in the first round. So there is still a chance that Auburn could end up getting, they have to win a national championship. Auburn has to win a national championship. That's the only way that UCLA loses. It all comes down. The video all comes down to it right here. Oregon can break the record by winning a national championship. Auburn can win the most impressive by winning a national championship. And they're facing off in a 2010 BCS championship rematch. I think there was like a 2019 game as well when Bo Nix ran all over Oregon. It's happening in the Peach Bowl there. The winner goes to the national championship and will face the winner of Notre Dame, South Carolina. Oregon does end up coming up short. So they'll be in the top 3. I don't think that they beat either USC or Clemson for their overall scores, but they will be in the top 3 all time. But they come up short against Auburn. Typical story for Oregon. And they lose in overtime. So Auburn got the stop on the first drive, and then They just score a touchdown and win the game. They move on. It's Auburn versus South Carolina. I want to say that Notre Dame and South Carolina was a Lou Holtz Bowl. Did Lou Holtz coach at South Carolina? I can't remember exactly if I'm right about that. But Notre Dame lost by 1 there, so it's Auburn and South Carolina in the national championship. Again, the stakes are Auburn gets the win. They are the most impressive team. South Carolina gets the win. UCLA is the most impressive team. No need to do any top 5s. We'll just do 2 winners for you at the end after this game. And Auburn pulls it off. The one most impressive team to win a national championship is the team that will take the most impressive race. Let me put some points together to make it all for sure. But Auburn gets the win here, 40-28 over South Carolina, and overtakes UCLA with a magical run in the final season. So here it is. Here's the podium for you. UCLA does end up 3rd with 49 points. A pretty good run for most impressive. Our second best most impressive so far was Duke last time, who I think got into like the 50s, but didn't quite get there. So UCLA had a pretty good run for most impressive. Auburn gets second. They have our second best run for most impressive now with 63 points. So Duke can be caught, but you got to get the right alignment. And Duke is going to be a problem in that every single time because they are one of the best teams in that race. And I'm going to keep them in there because they're not winning it every time, but somebody's got to catch that 87 points. And that will be hard to do because it's still a top 4 score, but it's not in the top 3 anymore. Oregon gets the win. They scored 99 points, just 4 shy of USC's 103 that they got second place with last time. So Clemson at 116 is doable. You can catch that. Clemson only got 1 national championship in that run, but 2 runners up, and they had the perfect season that you can get with 52 points. You're probably going to have to get in 4 times, though, to get it done. Oregon and USC both had probably the best runs that you can have while not making it in 1 season. If you want to beat Clemson, you're going to have to make it in 4 times. There's a lot more points on the board. There is a lot more points on the board from what Clemson scored with that 116 because 4 straight 52-point seasons, you can get as high as 208 points. So there's tons more points on the board. No one's ever going to get 208, I don't think, but Clemson is not untouchable. We see that in the very next video. Oregon was close. With 2 more wins, they would have jumped way past Clemson. With 1 more win, they would have been right on Clemson's ass at 109. So it's very doable to catch Clemson and USC, but the new top 3, Clemson at 116, USC at 103, Oregon at 99. That is your current Hall of Fame. I think we're actually going to just do a video for Clemson and USC. To get into the Hall of Fame, you got to get to 100 points. I think that is the bar to start off with. Maybe we'll start shaking things around, but you got to get to 100 points, get into the Hall of Fame for more Bucky Barracks College Football 26. But that's all we got for you. We will check you next time, probably next week.